Do cabled connections and Wi-Fi use the same bandwidth? My brother likes to play games online on his Xbox. However, because he is far away from the router, he uses our Wi-Fi instead of an Ethernet cable. I, being closer to the router, use an Ethernet cable for my desktop. Occasionally I torrent/seed Linux distributions, which takes up a large portion of the available bandwidth. Are the two methods of obtaining access to the internet separated? That is, will downloading a large file on my computer affect my brother's available bandwidth despite the fact that I am using an Ethernet cable and he is using the Wi-Fi? My intuition says yes, as both methods have to go through the router, though I could be wrong as my background in networking is lacking to say the least.
To borrow from U.S. Senator Ted Stevens, the internet is a series of tubes. You have one tube coming into your house, the ISP connection plugged into your router. Everything behind your router shares that tube. Think of the Ethernet cables as a regular straw, and the Wi-Fi as a long, flexible straw. If someone on the Ethernet straw is drinking up all the bandwidth, there's none left for the thirsty person on the Wi-Fi straw.
Additionally to what has already been said, downloading a large file does not directly influence bandwidth. As long as the file is being downloaded slowly, its size does not matter. You also mentioned torrents. Torrents have a very interesting effect on networks. Downloading a torrent may significantly degrade your internet connection quality or that of other people sharing the same connection, including bandwidth and/or ping, even without hogging the network's entire bandwidth. By opening a large number of concurrent connections, a torrent can overload the processor of your router, which translates into a huge drop in overall networking performance, and even overheating in the worst case. Uploading, seeding, a torrent can have the same effect as downloading one, but for a different reason. A connection can only be established when a client, you, makes a request to a server, upload a message. The server responds with some data, download, but since anything could happen to the data along the way, such as packet loss, the client needs to verify the data's integrity and report back to the server, either with an "I got the package, please send the rest," or with a "the package is corrupted, please send again." If you're already using your entire upstream bandwidth for seeding, your or other computer on the same network may not have the necessary bandwidth for base communication. Torrents do not have to be a networking deadweight, as long as the torrent client is configured properly. Limit the maximum amount of connections to a reasonable value, and do not allow your client to use up the entire network's upstream. There are plenty of good guides online for configuring a torrent client properly.
A wired connection has the capability to use more bandwidth than the Wi-Fi and will win in any speed race. Most of the answers and comments are all correct, but I want to mention you can influence who gets priority over the bandwidth by properly configuring your quality of service (QoS) settings. The way to do this is different from setup to setup. It's going to take some time to figure out, and the router is the key player on this, and there are guides online geared towards Xbox optimization. In theory, properly configured QoS can help you get maximum utilization of your bandwidth while reducing compromise. Also, it is better, or critical even, to play online games with an Ethernet connection, and one with the highest setting allowed. Test it out, it responds faster, lower latency. Here is an excerpt from the web. If you're using your 360 and you start having latency issues, especially when others are using the same connection as you at the same time, then you should look into using quality of service, QoS, to prioritize your 360's traffic above other traffic. Note, I think MACLoud is confusing internet bandwidth with the router's hardware load. Wireless is a more complex way to communicate and can potentially use up more of the router's hardware capacity. Some routers have really crappy processors, buffers, etc.
Yes, both methods consume the uplink bandwidth to your ISP. All traffic on your network that transits the router, downloads, video streaming, etc., shares the internet connection bandwidth.
If you want to support the channel,